amazing artist. I hope you are having an awesome day today. And welcome to a brand new project. Yes, this project is all about clay. This kind of clay is made from the earth. It is basically just dirt and water mixed together to create something that you can mold and shape into anything that you want to. For this project, we are going to be creating coil rainbow wall hangings. So you're going to be able to decorate your room with these. They're kind of like a wall decoration, and you're going to learn how to create coils and a beautiful rainbow from it. So let's go ahead and get started. What I have is clay, of course. I have some water in case my clay starts to dry out or I want to smooth any edges out. And I also have a popsicle stick and a straw that we're going to use a little bit later. But first, I'm just going to take a little bit of my clay at a time. You don't want to start with this big old clunk of clay because that's just too much. It's going to be hard to work with. So I'm just going to take a little bit at a time, and we're going to make something called a sphere. A sphere is a 3D circle. So what I'm going to do is take this clay, and I'm going to take it between my hands, in the palm of my hands, and I'm going to start rolling it around. Now it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, because after you create somewhat of a sphere, then you are going to start rolling it on your table, going up and down, back and forth, until it makes this kind of cylinder shape. And you're just going to keep on rolling this out. Now, if your clay is very dry, then you'll start to see some cracking on it. And you're just going to dip your fingers in the water and add a little bit of water at a time. When you add water, you're going to want to squish it in, mix it into your clay so that it's not slippery anymore. If your clay is slippery, it's like slipping out of your hands, and that means you've added too much water. You can always add more water if your clay is drying out, but you can't take it away once you've added it. So don't add too much water. Just a little bit goes a long way. Also, when you're adding water, you don't want to dip this in your water. Don't dip your clay in the water. Use your fingers to slowly add water at a time. Now this clay feels great. It's not cracking, so I made a sphere, and then I'm going to start rolling it on my table because we're going to make what's called a coil. And a coil is a long cylindrical piece of clay that kind of looks like a worm or a snake. And so I'm just taking my hands and I'm rolling it out, and I honestly think this is too much clay, so I'm just going to pinch this in half. You really don't need a lot. And then I'll start rolling this one, and you might be able to see mine is turning flat, and that's okay, but I want it to be more rounded. So I'm going to kind of pinch it and round it out a little bit. Use both of my hands to roll this out. And what I'm doing is I'm starting in the middle, and I'm slowly, as I roll it, pulling my hands out towards the edges. And what that is doing is it's making my coil longer and skinnier, which is what I want. So here's my first coil. It's going to be the first part of my rainbow, and if we think of a rainbow, it's a curve, so I want this to be curved. So we'll just set that aside. There's my first coil. Now I need to make another one, so how do we make it? We got to make sure our clay is not cracking, so just add a little bit of water at a time, mix it in, and then you're going to make a sphere between your hands, and then you are going to put it on your table and start rolling it out into a coil. And as you roll, it's going to start getting longer and longer. Remember, if your coil starts to flatten out, then you're just going to take your fingers and try to round it out, and then continue to roll, starting in the middle. And as you roll up and down, you're going to pull your fingers out towards the edges of your coil. It starts to become a lot easier. However, these might be a little bit tricky at first, and that's fine. That's why we're doing this, so that you can learn and practice. And mistakes are going to happen, but you know what's great about clay is if you make a mistake, you can just squish it back into a ball and try again. So I think this is about the right length, and I'm going to bring over my first coil, and I'm going to put my second coil right inside of the last one. We're gonna blend these together in a second, but first we need to focus on making these coils. If we think of a rainbow, it has red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So I need to make 7 coils. You could make more if you have room, but we're just gonna work with 7 as our minimum that we need. But you could do 8 or 9 if you have time. And I'm gonna grab another small piece of clay, add a little bit of water if it's dry, and make some more coils. So I'm actually going to go ahead and speed this part up because I'm doing the same thing over and over again 7 times at least until I have a rainbow formed, and then I'll be right back to show you the next step. all my coils made, and I just was wrapping them around each other, and they were getting longer as I went on because our rainbow is getting wider. So if yours are too short, then you'll just want to make them a little bit longer so that they wrap all the way around. Now I do have some super long pieces down here, and that is where our popsicle stick is going to come in handy, because we are going to cut all those loose ends off. So I'm just going to take the side of my popsicle stick, and all this extra clay can go back into your clay ball. And now we have a nice straight edge down here at the bottom. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. Just cut off those ends, and now all of our coils are perfectly aligned down at the bottom. So here is our rainbow, but we are going to add a little extra touch to this down here at the bottom. We're going to add some clouds if you want to. You certainly don't have to, but I think it's a really nice addition. And we're going to use a coil for our clouds, but we're going to do something a little bit different. So let me go ahead and make a coil, and then I'll show you how to do the cloud. By the way, I forgot to mention this earlier. Whenever you are making your coils, you want to try to make them the same thickness. And what I mean by that is we don't want one side of our coil to be super fat and the other side to be really skinny. So we gotta have just a little bit of evenness going throughout our coil. It's okay if it's not exactly perfect, but we just don't want one side to be really big and then some skinny parts and some bigger parts going along our coil. So just try to make sure it's the same thickness. And a good tip when you're rolling your coils out is you don't want to press with your fingers so hard. You're just barely pressing it with a little bit of pressure to roll it out. Don't squish it whenever you're rolling it out, because then you're just going to make it flat. So just barely press it and roll it out as you are creating your coil. Okay, so for the cloud, I have a coil, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one end of my coil and I'm going to start spiraling it in. Now mine cracked right here, and I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to keep on going. If it cracks, we can smooth it out later, and that just means that my clay is a little bit dry. But as you keep on going, you're just going to keep on spiraling it as big as you want your cloud to be. Now, I think that's a good size for my cloud. I just put it underneath my rainbow, and I think that's a good size. So for these cracks, I can take my popsicle stick and kind of smooth them together. So the cracks are not a really big deal. We can fix them right now with our popsicle stick. And on the end, I'm going to take the end of my spiral here. I'm going to use my finger, or you could use your popsicle stick and just smooth it out until it blends in to the rest. That will secure it in place so that our spiral does not come apart. So let me go ahead and make my clouds. That means I need to do 1, 2, 3, about 3 more coils, and then we will be almost done with our beautiful coil rainbow. But I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back to show you the last couple of steps. Okay, I just finished making my spiral clouds, and we're pretty much done with the clay now. So I'm just going to ball up all my extra clay and set it off to the side. And I'm going to bring over my rainbow carefully. If you try to pick this up, then your coils are just going to fall apart because we haven't blended them together yet. What we're going to do is we are going to start using our popsicle stick, and we're going to blend these coils together. Now I know this sounds a little bit crazy because that's our 7 colors of the rainbow, but we're just going to do this to the back of our rainbow, because we want these coils to stay together whenever we fire them in the kiln. So I'm just taking my popsicle stick with very light pressure. I am not pressing down hard. If you press down too hard, then you're going to squish your clay and you might ruin your coils on the front. So I'm just taking my popsicle stick and I'm starting at the first coil here, and I'm dragging down towards the last coil. And I'm being very gentle with this because I don't want to mess up my beautiful rainbow. Now, if your rainbow does start to come apart, just use your hands and squish it back together. If you need to, you can hold your coils together as you blend your clay with your popsicle stick. And once you get down here towards the bottom and you get to your clouds, we're pretty much going to do the same thing. So position them how you want them to be. And we're going to start blending our clouds up into our rainbow. So I'm taking my popsicle stick and I just took the inside of my coil and I'm blending it or pulling that clay up so that it blends into my rainbow. And I'm just going to go ahead and blend the back side of my coils as well, making sure there's no gaps. We want to blend our spirals together too so that they stay together. Now I'll do the second half, the same exact technique, starting at the top, dragging down with little pressure. That means I'm not pressing down very hard. Remember, if you press down too hard during this part, then all your coils might squish and get flattened on the backside, and we don't want that. We want to be able to see our coils when we flip it over. Also going to blend those spirals together too. So I'm going horizontal to blend the spirals together, and I'm going vertical or up and down to blend my spirals into my rainbow. All right, after you've blended everything gently with your popsicle stick and you don't see any gaps or anything in your rainbow, if you have a gap, then that is a possibility that it might break whenever we fire it in the kiln. So really try to fill in those gaps. And then you're gonna take your water here and just dip a couple fingers in at a time, and we're gonna smooth this out. We don't want it to look all raggedy and stuff like that, because whenever you fire clay in the kiln, it gets really, really hard. And if we have like sharp edges like this, then it might actually cut us whenever we take it out of the kiln. So I'm just using one of my fingers and I am just smoothing out those edges. And I don't have to make it perfectly smooth, I just don't want it to be sharp. And now, after you smooth the backside of your rainbow, this is the most exciting part, is you're gonna get a paper plate, and anywhere on the back, on the front, you're gonna write your name. Now you might notice this already has a name on it. What you're gonna do is you're just gonna cross out the old name and put your name. And then I'm gonna carefully, because this is still very wet, I'm gonna carefully pick up my rainbow with both hands. If something falls off, then we have to blend it a little bit better. And I'm gonna plop it carefully onto my plate. And look at that. You can see the front side. If you want, you can blend some edges together, whatever you want to do to finish this off. So I think I want to blend my rainbow into my coils here on the front, so I'm just carefully with my popsicle stick blending those edges together on both sides. And again, on the front, if you have any edges that are kind of sharp, then you'll want to take your finger and dip it in the water and try to smooth those out a little bit. Now there is one last thing that we're going to do, and it requires a straw. And I've just cut off little pieces of this straw. Now this is a wall hanging, so we want to be able to hang it on the wall. So up at the top of your rainbow, kind of in towards the maybe second or third coil, you're going to take your popsicle stick and just poke it in there, rotate it a little bit, and pull it up. And we're going to do one more on the right side over here. Put your popsicle down, twist it around your clay, and now we have two holes that we are going to use to make this a beautiful decoration. And at the bottom of our clouds, I'm going to poke a couple more holes because I would like to add some yarn down here at the bottom a little bit later. So poke a couple holes in your clouds down here. We don't want these holes, oop, there was some clay at the top of that. We don't want these holes to be right on the edge because that will make it very difficult to not break. Then we can add yarn and it will hang down from the bottom of our rainbow after it's fired and painted and ready to hang on the wall. All right, and there is my coil rainbow all ready to go. I have to let this dry out 100% before I can put it in the kiln. That might take 1 or 2 weeks, and then after it's fired, we are going to be able to paint it, add our yarn at the bottom and our hanging detail, and you'll be ready to take these home and hang them in your bedroom. I can't wait to see how your coil rainbows are turning out. I know they're going to be amazing because you guys are amazing. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.